I'm so excited to chat with Erin Avery today on the Awaken Feminine podcast. Erin is a binge recovery and body confidence coach whose mission is to help women feel so confident and in their power that they can freely live their life without food or their body holding them back. And I know she has so much love and wisdom to share with us today. She's joining me all the way from Michigan in the USA. Welcome to the show, Erin.
Hi, thank you. Great intro.
Yeah, thank
Blushing
you.
over here.
I'm really excited for our conversation. I know you're an open book, so I'm just excited to where the conversation takes us, really. So before we dive in, I always ask my guests this question because I just love to know, what is your definition of an awakened feminine?
That is so good. I should have practiced that one. I think an awakened feminine is just someone that is in their power. They are in their power. There's nothing holding them back, and they live in their truth.
That's beautiful and powerful. Thank you for that. Now, Erin, let's dive in. Can you share with us why you do what you do?
Okay, so I have gone through many a thing as to why I do what I do, but it really has, the core of it is when I was 15, I had some trauma happen to me and I wasn't able to express it vocally to people to try to get help. And so the only way to make me feel better was to eat. And so I ate my emotions. I, then started to, that comfort just felt so good for a very long time that eventually, even at 15, a very young age, I realized, obviously you're developing in your body. I started to see my peers around me in school. And just for preface, me being an African-American girl living in pretty much my environment was all white, Caucasian. I felt different there, but then my body was different. And or at least I thought it was different. And so I wasn't your typical skinny blonde, blue-eyed girl. And I started to process, I don't even know how really, but I started to process that I was different and I need to look like that. And so I started dieting and, looking at the covers of magazines, it was 17 and like Teen Allure back then. And I wasn't on the cover, but it was, Cindy Crawford, Nikki Taylor. And so I started dieting and I did that whole Monday through Friday thing. And I actually started my binge cycling then. I didn't purge by bringing food back up. I then purged with exercise. And so this went on for, I will be 44 in June. This went on until I was really about 30 years old. And when I hit 30, I still was stuck in this cycle, but it had gotten worse. Obviously, you grow up and then, boys, men, all that stuff. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And I wasn't confident in myself. I continued the cycle. And in the last 6 years, I've kind of developed my own little system and I stopped binging and I am very confident in my body now, but I've noticed, I have a goddaughter who's 14. So I noticed not that she's not confident in her body, but like the stories I've heard her talk about with other girls and I listen to that. I see it just in the world today on social media. Thank you for social media. Like you can connect with all these people and just see all these people's lives and what they go through. And I felt that there was a need for people to find a way to reclaim their power back to themselves, right? Because we give it away to food, we give it away to other people, dictating what we should look like or be like or act like. And so that's where this all stems from, because I did the same thing. And for many years, I was sad. I was lost. I was depressed. I was doing things to fight my body that weren't good. So, yeah.
Wow. What a big, powerful story that you have there. I want to ask you, Erin, what was that point that made you go, all right, I need to stop doing this?
Yeah. I can remember it like yesterday. I was actually in my kitchen and I was just upset, right? And I realized that I went to the pantry and I grabbed tortilla chips and Oreos. And I took them both out and I just sat down and when I think about it now, I thought what I was doing was like the typical everyday, you just grab something, you just munch on it and put it away. But I didn't do that. I was just eating. And I remember saying in my head what was wrong. Like I was so effing irritated at this person and at this situation and look at my life. And I was just eating. And I was getting down to like the bag of tortillas was almost gone anyway, but I was getting down to the end. I was getting to shove it, kind of like drink the rest of the crumbs like you do, tip the bag back. And I stopped and I said to myself, what I don't know if we can curse.
Yes, you can surely curse on this show.
But I literally said out loud, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And I threw it away. And at that very pivotal point, I started doing all kinds of work on myself. I don't know, you didn't say this, but I have a master's in, not that it really matters, but I have a master's in psychology and behavioral health and addiction. And so I went back to one of the chapters in the addictions book, because even though I wasn't addicted to food, they are related. And I started doing work there. I started unpacking some things. I started journaling. I went to therapy. It didn't work because there was a lot of more deeper stuff that I needed to just accept, understand, forgive, and move on. And so through journaling, I did that. And then I started doing more shadow work because one of the big things in this with binge eating is there's also sometimes trauma that we're not aware of. And so I did some shadow work. I'm starting to do more shadow work with that because triggers come up all the time. And not that I binge eat, but I start to realize that something is off. But I digress a little bit, but yeah, that was that pivotal moment. Just me sitting in my kitchen with a bag of chips and getting ready to drink the rest of the crumbs. I had to stop.
Wow. Was there something, I know you said you were irritated at someone at that point, but I'm trying to think how I can ask this. Like you were irritated. I mean, surely there's been instances where you've been irritated. I mean, you've been having this going on for so long. Do you know why that particular time it was that trick? It just went, no, Erin, you need to stop this right now. And you need to, move on, let things go, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. So when I said, Pat, in the beginning, when I said there was trauma, so I'll get into a lot of detail because I could take another podcast.
And you're welcome to come back on another podcast if we want to go down that route.
When I was 15, I lived with a friend of the family. So it was only because I wanted to keep going to a high school that I wanted to. My parents didn't live in that area. And I was thankfully there was no touching or anything involved. But at 15 years old, when an older grown man comes into the room and just in a robe and you turn over and you see their hand over your breast and they're just in a robe, it kind of it freaks you out because I have no idea. And I'm thankful I don't have any idea what would have happened, but that part was traumatizing. And then prior to that too, I was in the shower and when the door doesn't close all the way, it has that little crack. And I remember getting out of the shower to grab my towel and I saw those two eyes just peering at me and I knew it was him. And so, just those images in my brain and not wanting to tell, because he was a friend of my mom and dad, and I knew either my dad was going to kill him or something, you know what I mean? And I just didn't, at 15, you just, you just don't know what to do. And so, from that's why I said there's usually some type of trauma. It could be, everybody's trauma is catastrophic to them. But because of that, I started to feel like, I went through stages. I felt like it was always about my body and appearance. I had to keep that up. And because I thought for some reason, I was overweight, so I was fighting myself there. But then I also kept eating because I felt like maybe I was too attractive, not to sound conceited, but I felt like I was too pretty. And so if I made myself bigger, right, because that's not quote unquote socially acceptable either, maybe then that would never happen to me again. So I was in this push or pull. But at that moment, when I realized I was done, it was actually because of a man and a guy I was dating. And he just really and truly picked me apart. It was a horrible relationship anyway. But at that point, because he was talking about, because I had acne scars and, you've got so many dots on your face and, you need to stop eating this. And you are, didn't really call me fat, but just said, he would always mention my thick thighs and, you're just thick around the waist. And in that relationship with him, it brought up the trauma from then, but in a different way. And I just remember trying to change for him. And then finally, when that last straw happened, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I am in my own brain. I'm very logical. Like I'm a very logical person. I'm very, to know me, you'd be like, how did you even take that shit from him for so long? Like, it's just not my personality, but when it comes to men, you just gonna go goo goo gaga, whatever. And so I took it and I finally just came back. I guess that's when I started to reclaim my power in that moment. And I said, I'm done. I'm done with him. I'm done feeling like I can't be in control. And that's pretty much how that happened. It was, the catalyst was there. And I just finally came back into who Erin is in that moment. And that was it.
You go, girl. How old were you when that when things changed? When that happened?
I was 32. So it wasn't too long ago.
Yeah.
I was 32 when things changed, and it's been a long, hard road to get to. I've only really been, honestly, the confidence, binge free, and in my own power awakened, if you will, in the last 6 years.
Yeah. But the thing is, you took that step. You went, no, and you did the work. And a lot of people think that, once you decide, it's like, you just go on this rosy rainbow path journey. But it takes a lot of work and commitment, because if you don't commit to it, you can so easily slide back to your old patterns and ways. And I'm sorry about what happened to you when you were young. I had something similar when I was younger as well. So I totally understand where you're coming from in terms of you feel like you feel dirty. You feel it's your fault, even though it's got nothing to do with you. And the amount of work that you need to do to actually realize that is just phenomenal, because you were at such a young age that you can't even process those emotions, and you didn't know how to deal with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what you said, like so I was 32 when this happened, and it took about 6 years because I didn't know who I was. And so I tried, and I was stuck in that cycle of trying to process it, right? Like, society says you have to look this way and be this way. So I was trying to process that way, but in my heart of hearts, I knew I was fine. And so I still did every powder, shake, pill, and I was still unhappy because I wasn't getting to where I was quote unquote, supposed to be. And that's what happened. And then I still let things trigger me, you know? So, cause we all have those triggers, right? And it's just being able to understand and process and, you know, work through those things. And so I was still being triggered, and I would let those triggers affect me. And that would cause me to just, you know, I would say, screw it. And then I would eat everything. And then I'd say, okay, Erin, no, you're working on yourself. So let's start over. And so those were very hard 6 years, but I'm so glad I went through those. I always say that I'm so glad I went through that struggle and those trenches, because now I'm able to effectively help other women do it much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know when you're in the deep, you know, in the midst of it, it's like, why is this happening? Why can't I just get over it so much faster? But we're all meant, you know, we're all exactly where we were and where we are meant to be. So having to go through all that to come out the other side, you know, this powerful, strong woman that you are, helping other women to reclaim that power. Yeah. I want to ask you, you said you did a lot of journaling, and now you're doing, like, you know, shadow work as well, and also shadow work as well to, you know, really work through that period of, you know, that time. Can you unpack a bit what the journaling looked like? As in, like, did you have particular questions, or, you know, and also with your shadow work, what does that actually mean for those people who don't know what shadow work is?
Yeah, I'm still trying to, like, get that part down. But the journaling, it honestly, because people ask me about journaling, there's no right or wrong way for anyone that wants to know. And I'm sure people have heard that before. But for me, it was the very first journal I did on this was I wrote a letter to him to forgive him for what he did. I think there's so much power in forgiveness. It's not saying that it's okay. It's not saying that now it's, oh, you know, I forgive you, and now we're going to forget about it. It's a way to release. When we're upset with people and we don't get to forgive, we're actually hurting ourselves more. And there's such power in forgiveness. So I wrote that letter to him, and then I just tore it up. And that sent out some type, it was just a release, almost like this blackness, this black cloud came off of me. And then after that, it was journaling about who I am, like reconnecting just to myself, what I like. Cause in those years, I lost myself. I just lost myself. So I just started writing about, what do I like? What happened today? What made me happy? What made me happy today? So I did that a lot. And then I started writing future letters to myself, that actually I should look at probably sometime in this year sometime. But I wrote letters to myself about what it looked like in 5 years from now for me, who I am, what I'm doing, how I'm, you know, what posture I have with myself. So my journaling was more so of a diary of my day to day, which is funny because everyone does gratitude journals and things now, which I've been doing for years, but it wasn't really gratitude. It was just like, you know, dear diary, almost like today was great. You know, it was awesome meeting up with this great friend. We had so much fun doing this. I think I took a personality from people that I was able to learn from. Or if I read a book, I started reading more. I started listening to, podcasts weren't really that big of a thing, but I started listening to like NPR stuff, just absorbing other people's positivity and trying to figure out how it works in my life. And so if something interests me, I would just jot it down and then I'd write about it and how that fits into my life. So that's really how the journaling started. And as it's progressed, obviously, and today it's more like people conventional stuff, 3 things of gratitude, what my intention is today, and affirmation, and things like that. But in the beginning, it was really just trying to forgive, find who I was, and then write letters to myself about what I wanted in my life to look like, because there's so much power, I believe, in sending that out in detail to the universe. And so my brain could go after that, because who I was isn't who I was. And I wanted to create who I wanted to be, which is pretty much spot on. Like I said, I need to go back and read some of those letters to see, but pretty much spot on as to what I envisioned my life to be like. And as far as shadow work goes, like I said, this is really new to me. I studied it when I took my NLP certification too, but it's basically this, it's almost like journaling, but you feel the feelings, like you actually sit within the experience. And so, one of the powerful things that I recently did was I took myself back to that 15-year-old child, what happened, and I processed that, and I forgave myself. I forgave myself, not that it was my fault, but I just forgave myself for, the things I did to me, because I'm in that stage of like processing, like how I even got to the eating part, right? So I'm forgiving myself for feeling like I was less than, not enough, wasn't pretty enough, or was pretty enough. Like I'm forgiving myself for that, but it's sitting in those emotions and actually just kind of looking at it's like floating up above and looking at the situation.
Yeah.
And seeing that, it wasn't, it's not, it's the word I'm looking for. It's not, I'm just going to say it's not your fault, but just seeing it for just being.
Yeah.
As terrible as it was, you're seeing it just as just being, and then kind of going through and working through that from the child aspect.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I understand. You're looking at it like as an adult as well, to process your childhood feelings and emotions, to understand what happened, and then forgiving yourself for putting yourself through that is kind of a bit of like inner child work, isn't it? Then yeah.
So through the lens of you as an adult, but as a child, and it's deep work. And I honestly think I probably was thinking about finding someone that actually does that to really get it, because I'm doing it on my own. But there's a great book, Chasing the Light, I think it's what it's called. So that kind of has been, I've heard that that's something that should help guide a little bit more, but I'm new to it.
Yeah. And, there's so many modalities and tools and techniques that people use to, work through their trauma and, emotions and all that. So, Shadowwork's just one of them. And I always find it interesting because it's just, I think just the term shadow work, I find really interesting. Like, what is that? So it's good that you can explain it. So that's really cool. I want to ask you, during your healing stages, you did your journaling, you did you're now doing shadow work as well. But did you have any support or anyone that really helped you along your journey?
Not in the beginning, because like we said, when you're younger, you think it's your fault. And for me, I didn't want anyone to know, because I felt and I don't think I really felt dirty. I just didn't want, I'm a very private person to begin with. Well, it doesn't seem like it. I know.
I understand what you mean.
You know what I mean? I'm one of those, I'm an introverted extrovert type person. So I didn't say anything. And then, you get to the point where I thought I was over it. So I was like, well, why share this with anybody? And then when I knew I wanted to do this work, I did it on my own. I honestly just recently, with the coaching that I do, have shared my story more with other people. But my husband, when I was doing this, I opened up to him and told him more. And as far as support goes, I mean, my best friend, she understood and she knows. And it's funny because she was just here and we talked. She asked me about it, how that was all going. So I do have a little bit of support. I sometimes feel like, depending on the person who it is, but if you bring too many people into the pot, it kind of gets, the recipe just gets destroyed type deal. And so the people that do know, that do support me. So yes, I do have support. It's just very little because I don't want those people, the other people that I know I could bring into it to be like, oh, Erin, you got, like the very passive, just, oh, I got your back, girl type deal. Like, I don't want that type of support, right? Yeah. I need that support when when shit hits the fan, when I uncover something that I can literally just cry and talk through, and that person be truthful and honest with me. And, we can have that deep conversation if I need to have it. So yeah, I have support. It's just not, a lot.
Yeah. And I totally understand. And sometimes I find, when you have a coach or someone that's not so close to you, is actually easier to open up.
Yes.
And spill your guts out, and they can actually give you a more objective, answer or guidance. Yeah. Because your friends tend to obviously just want to protect you, but they can't. So they're not as objective as someone who doesn't actually really know you as well.
Yeah. That's why I kind of want to get someone that does shadow work and inner child work, a coach, so that they can help me through that. Yeah. But I mean, the support that I have had, it's been great, but
I want to touch a bit on forgiveness, because you mentioned that, you wrote the letter to forgive that person. When you were saying that, I was like, whew. When you said it just kind of left, I was like, oh, I can feel it leaving. So forgiveness, and you were saying that, it doesn't mean it's right, but it just means that you are getting rid of that energy. And it's just so important. Like you were saying, you forgave that person, but you also forgave yourself. And I just really kind of wanted to reiterate how important it is that we do forgiveness for ourselves as well, because I think especially women, and I know you're a mama as well, I'm a mom as well, and we just like to beat ourselves up, oh, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, and, the list goes on, right? But it's that, just find that forgiveness is so important, and self-compassion. I don't know whether you found that, as you were doing more of the work, that you became more compassionate to yourself.
Yes, I did. More compassion. So we haven't talked a lot about it, but the body image that I had, right? So I beat myself. I mean, I would look in the mirror and just pick myself apart, right? And I picked myself apart a lot more because I grew up dancing, and I went to the gym. I had a trainer, and I'm a personal trainer. Well, not anymore, but I personal trained, and I did all the things, and I still wasn't, quote unquote, the best version of my body that I should have. And so I would cover up, I body shamed myself all the time. And it was just one of those things where I just wasn't kind to myself at all. And so through the journaling, which was some of the journaling too, it was about my body as well. I had to just start, and this is something that I do. Like friends are like, how do you do this? I started with the very smallest feature, and I never say I love any part of my body. I still actually don't say that. I just say, I like my eyes. And why, right? My legs. So I've always had thicker legs, which I'm very proud of now. But when I was younger, my aunt used to call me Wonder Woman. And so as a child, I took that as, because I'm big and like my legs are big and well, I didn't think they were strong, but my legs were big and I'm just, more athletic built and strong. And for some reason, because Wonder Woman, the original Linda Carter was, brown-eyed, dark hair, white woman, slender. And I never could equate that. So I took that internally as something bad.
Mm.
And so, when we're children, you have to kind of watch what you say, because you don't know how they internalize things. And I started with small features, and then I started with my legs, and I was just like, I like my legs. And why? I work hard at my legs. They're strong. They get me from A to B. My belly, I don't have a six pack, right? But I love my belly. Well, I guess I do love my belly. I like my belly. So that's what I started with, is I like my belly because, it's, whatever. So I would just say something every day to have more compassion for my body. And to this very day, I like to just look at myself naked, which is a practice I think every woman should just do, just to literally stare your eye to eye in the mirror, go up and down your body and just look at it with no judgment. And you start to have more compassion for yourself, because the body, no matter what size, it's beautiful. And, if you can find something to say is beautiful and why you like it, you don't have to love it. It's really hard to go from hating something to loving something overnight, right?
Yeah.
You can just right? I like my arms. I don't, for what reason? They let me carry my child, right?
Yeah.
I'm thankful for them. So I've developed a lot of compassion for myself in regards to my body, and just also into the day-to-day. I used to be very calculated, and if this didn't happen, I would be hard on myself. And, obviously with a child, you can't be calculated, but
yep, I get it.
But before baby, if something didn't happen, okay, I can do it tomorrow. There's tomorrow. Yeah.
Totally resonate with your messages. And my story with what relatives say to you about your body when you're young really does affect you as you get older. I'm very tiny. I'm 5 foot, and I'm a very tiny person. But as an Asians tend to be all very skinny, and they don't have hips. I have hips.
Okay.
I have hips. Yeah. And I love my hips now, but there was a time where I got told I had childbearing hips.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very big trigger for me. So I totally get yours was the thighs, but mine was my hips. But now I do actually love my hips. I went from going, oh my gosh, like I've got a big butt, to now I'm like, I love my butt.
Yeah. It makes a lot like some people love the big butts.
Yeah, that's right. There's a song about it. Come on.
Yeah. So and it's funny, like language does a lot too, right? Because I just said, like, without even thinking, like, I love my belly. And because I don't really do that anymore in the mirror, but I do. I love my body. I guess, I do. I love my body. And the more, because here's the thing, affirmations are just words unless you put them to practice. And that's something that I live by, because I used to do the affirmations. I'm wonderful. I'm the best. I love, I like my body. But unless you actually put action to your affirmations, they're shit. Yeah. I'm not an affirmation person unless you actually put the movement behind it. And so the more that you do it, and I won't geek out on it because I love the brain too. We got another podcast, but the more you do it, your brain starts to search for it and it will create it.
Yeah.
And so, and it will actually become a belief. It will change your core beliefs that you had about yourself to real ones that you can appreciate now, to where you say things like, I love my body, and on a podcast and not even realize that's what you just said, but it's the truth. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I totally agree with you with affirmations, because when you start getting to your personal development and doing all the work, you're like there, you always hear, say affirmations. But when you're saying it and at the back of your brain going, I don't believe that, it doesn't quite work. So it's finding that evidence that what you're saying is true in your life. Yeah. So if you say, I'm beautiful, okay, find a part of you that you think is beautiful. Yeah. So you start building that evidence so that your brain goes, oh, I can see that and I can find more and more things. Yeah.
Affirmations with action. That's my huge thing.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. I was going to ask you something before I lost my train of thought, but there was actually something that I want to ask you from the beginning, when you mentioned you grew up in a very Caucasian town or wherever you are, and you were, there weren't many, Afro-Americans. One of six. Okay. Yeah. So, and then you said, you started comparing your body to that, and also back then there wasn't much diversity in terms of all your magazines and media and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So how, did you still have that going through, the period or that time from when you were young to when you decided to go, Erin, we need to stop this? And is this something that you're still working through?
Great question. So yes. So obviously, I'm product of the 80s. So like you said, it was magazines where, Nike Taylor, Cindy Crawford. TV shows were things like, Saved by the Bell, where there was one the turtle. There's always, every show had that one, African-American, star on there. And, you really didn't see my people doing big things. And it wasn't until, so honestly, yes, I went to see Janet Jackson. It was her video first. I think it was the video, her video. And she just had a most amazing stomach. And I was like, I want that stomach. Hindsight, I was still comparing, even though we were still, black, but I saw that it was possible, right, to look this certain way and be black, right? So then there was Janet Jackson, there was Paula Abdul, my two favorites.
Yes, I love them. I love them. Yeah, I'm an 80s girl too.
So when I saw that happening, the very few that were coming out, I began to compare, but then it turned into, those are strong, powerful, famous, sought after women. And there's Halle Berry, right? So I started seeing them as women of color that can do stuff, that's just what I thought. I'm like, they can do stuff. Like, they're out there putting themselves out there. They don't, what I saw, what we see, there's no, I can't do this. And what about this? Right. They're just out there doing their thing and they're becoming successful. And so I saw that, and I still, to this day, I just watched the Janet Jackson documentary, and it gave me chills, because I got to see what she went through, and it wasn't easy, but she still did it. And she's, she went through the body image, and I related to her. And so just real quick, it was just one of those things where when I just watched her documentary and, seeing her, it wasn't just fluid, flawless. And, I still live in a predominantly white area. Obviously things are changing more and more, but it's a little more diverse. But since I was little, like I said earlier, I was one of 6 Black families. And then, my best friend is white, but everything outside of me it's where I grew up, where I'm at. It's just predominantly white. I'm not in the city. I'm in the suburbs, which makes a difference, you know, obviously, not obviously, but in most cases it makes a difference. And it did impact me a lot because that's all you see. So when I came to, like I said, celebrities that were strong and doing things like Janet, Halle Berry, Paula Abdul, and things like that, Gabrielle Union now. And it's just, I see these different people. I see that they are strong Black women, but also have, you know, diversity, but still making it through. And like I was saying with Janet, you know, her and I like we're best friends.
We're all connected, you know, right?
Seeing her, you know, because she's been thin, she's been bigger, she's been thin, she's been bigger. And, you know, it gives me something to connect to, even though it's so far removed our lives, but I still can connect in those different ways. I probably am way off subject with what you asked me, but yeah.
No, it's great because I think being able to see someone that, you know, that you can relate to by that, you know, you feel connected to. Like for me, I'll, you know, want to see now there's more Asian, like Chinese Asians in Hollywood as well. So then there's more that representation and seeing that, oh, just because I'm a certain race, it doesn't actually make me less capable.
Yeah.
Because we are all just as capable, but it's just that we haven't been represented and we haven't seen it, even though there are many, you know, very successful people of color, but we just don't see them because they don't get represented. I just wanted to ask about that. I don't know why. I just want to ask you this, like navigating, you know, growing up and work and things like that in a very predominantly white community. Did you find that, how did you find that? Did it affect how you worked or how you saw yourself when you were at work?
You know, it didn't. I think I found myself more so wondering, trying to think, it was so long ago, but long ago, but not too long ago. During that time frame, I think because, and this is, I don't know if this is awful to say, or if this was an advantage for me, I don't know. But, you know, so one of the things that I grew up with, you know, Black, or, you know, you're not Black, you're white. And it was because I'm able to articulate and talk. And because I don't know, I don't know, like, I don't know why people were saying that to me, my friend, or, you know, people that that don't know me, but said, oh, she ain't Black, she's white. I think it's because of the way I talked and the way that I dressed, right? My family, for the 80s, like we were middle class, right? My dad had a great paying job and I was able to have things and do things. So I think I didn't have that, I won't say hard of a time with work or being in school even because of that. Now that's just me seeing from the outside. Now what people were actually thinking, I don't know, but things were kind of smooth for me in that way. So I didn't really have a lot of issues there. I do know as I got older though, the remarks that hindsight looking at them were kind of rough for me. Some things that people, like I was the token, you know, because in South Park, you know, that one Black child, they call him token. Hurtful, right? But it happened. And there's, you know, other just not so direct derogatory things, but things that people thought I was okay with because in their mind, I wasn't Black. I was acting, I acted white. So I didn't have a rough time in the sense of, you know, it was like hard knocks for me. But I think emotionally, those things and maybe I've blocked them out and maybe it's something I work on. Emotionally, some of those things they were kind of like little daggers, but
yeah. I think I wanted to ask you that question because, you know, me, I'm in Australia, and obviously I'm a minority here. And yeah, just I didn't have any issues, but I hear people that have issues because I grew up in Australia. So for me, like, even though I'm very Asian looking, but people thought I was white. Okay. So it was very same where I fitted in with the white community, even though I don't look white. So for me, it had never been a problem. But then I also know that there are people who have issues because, you know, they might not fit in as well, or maybe the community that they were working in weren't as acceptable of the differences. So, yeah, I think what I wanted to come to was I don't know, it's probably a big discussion and not for this podcast, but whether, you know, how you integrate into a society where you're the minority, it's really dependent on your mindset and how you see yourself and, you know, see yourself in there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, like I said, that was, you know, that's all I saw. And so you're watching Saved by the Bell and, you know, even cartoons like She-Ra, she was this thin blonde, you know, it does play a role in, okay, this, you know, I can actually remember thinking when I was younger, I wanted to change my hair because, you know, obviously mine was, I think at the time when I was younger, I had like the curl, and then I used to get it straightened, and I just wanted it to be easy, right? Because, you know, they were just wash and go. You didn't have to worry about products and straightening it and all those things, right? I wanted to change myself so that I could be a part of that. But then also when you were saying that, I wanted to say this, I fit in with the white community. And granted, there weren't many Blacks where I grew up, but even to this day, I'm not really accepted because of the way I talk, because of maybe the way I dress and things like that. You know, she's not white, but then I also have my Black counterpart saying the same thing. You're not Black enough. So I did have both of those spectrums, and that, you know, to fit it into what we're talking about, it did play a part because I was still torn.
Yeah.
You know, like I wanted to fit in because obviously that's all there was. I had to have friends, and, you know, they just happened to all be white. But the few Blacks that I did know, they weren't very accepting of me. The little snickers in the back about me. And even to this day, it's still kind of the same. I am not as bad, but, you know, yeah. So there's still that push and pull now. Yes, that kind of answers your question from a couple questions ago, but there's still that push and pull. And it's something where if I wasn't in the place that I am now, it could really drive me down a deep hole.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's such an interesting topic because you like, oh, actually the people that are my color think I'm not, they're part of, you know, that they don't see me as the same as them. Whereas it's such an interesting topic. And yeah, I really do think how you know, being in your power, let's go back to, you know, being that awakened feminine, when you're in your power and you know who you are, it doesn't really matter what color you are, you know, because it's what's in here that counts. And you stand in your truth, you stand in your power, you just stand tall and be who the fuck you are.
You do. That's right. You are yes. And I think, and so, I mean, just to tie it all together, those are just the things that, you know, I like to help women see and come to, because like I said, if I didn't do the work that I've done, I would just still be binge eating. I would still be stuck in the cycle of feeling like I have to go on a diet. I'm, you know, let's try this pill, powder, shake, let's try this program, because I'm not in my power. I'm not awakened of who I am. And so, just trying to tie that all back in.
Yeah.
We kind of went way off the deep end.
I know.
I love it.
That's what happens when you come on my podcast. It's like we're just off somewhere another.
But it does. It all ties in. And so you have to, and that's, like I said, that's why I'm okay with the struggles that I have been through, because now I can help any woman, a woman of color, white women, Asian, whatever, just bring themselves back into who they truly are, so they can create the life that they want to live, and they can do it in a sustainable way for their mental, emotional, and physical health.
Yeah, that's so beautiful what you're doing. And, having gone through your journey, you definitely are more than qualified to be able to help, women to get to where they want to be without, all the self-beating up, and, really be self-compassionate, self-forgiving, loving yourself to get to, the other side where the grass is definitely greener. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Erin, for this beautiful conversation today, or today for you, tonight for me. But I've just loved our conversation. Thank you for being an open book and just going wherever the conversation decided to flow. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what's setting your soul on fire right now?
Ooh. Honestly, my child. I know that might sound cheesy, but watching a 1-year-old life through her lens, it's beautiful. And it actually does set I told her this last night. I was like, I want to be like you when I grow up. It's just beautiful how children are just so accepting of themselves and of others. And it does make me want to be, to continue to work on myself so I can be a better version of me every day. But on top of that, I'm reading the book, The Alchemist. And I don't know if you read it, by Pablo.
Yes, I love that book.
That book, oh my God, that is setting my soul on fire too. There's so many good nuggets in there.
Yes.
So if you haven't read The Alchemist, people read it. It's amazing.
Yeah. I highly recommend that book as well. It's such a beautiful story, but it teaches you so much.
So much. And it boils, and honestly, I think it boils down to you stepping into your power, living your personal legend, as he calls it in there. So
beautiful. Thank you, Erin. If people want to find out more about you or how they can work with you, where should they go?
I hang out on Instagram. Avery.
Instagram?
Avery. Yeah, Instagram. It's Erin Michelle Avery. Yep.
Awesome. I will have your details in the show notes so people can reach out and find you. Thank you so much once again for this beautiful conversation.
Thank you, 𝐂𝐫𝐢𝐧. It was great being here.
Bye.
Bye.